Hi, everyone.
Councilman Scaringi, it's nice to see you.
Hey, how are you, Councilwoman?
You went away.
Yeah,
I
no,
saw you for a second.
just check. Yeah, no, just checking to make sure the what's it called, the webcam. I got a new monitor, so.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Lee, do we have everybody?
I'm not sure if Councilman Scanlon is on, but we have enough for a quorum if you want to get started.
Yeah, why don't we do that, actually? It is 6 o'clock. Everybody
Okay.
can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so why don't we get started? Welcome, everybody, to City Council Work Session for Monday, April 19th, 2021. Please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty,
and justice for all.
Can we have roll call, Lee?
Yes. Councilman Scaringi,
Present.
Councilwoman Riley,
Present.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Present.
Councilman Burns,
Present.
Councilman Strawn,
Present.
Councilman Scanlon,
Present.
and President Rasnetti.
Present.
That's all 7 here.
Okay, so Tom joined us, right? Okay, good.
Yes.
All right, so welcome, everybody. We do have a pretty full agenda tonight, but we are going to start off with a discussion with folks from Veolia. So we have representatives from Veolia here joining us tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I certainly felt that it was appropriate to have this opportunity so we can get to know you a little better, and also for you to have the opportunity to respond to questions and concerns from community members. And I'm sure, I hope you're familiar with some of what those concerns are, and we will be, folks will have the opportunity here, council members, to ask any specific questions. But I was just wondering, maybe before we get started with that, if you would just give us just a little bit of an introduction. Who are you? What do you do? How long have you been doing what you're doing?
Certainly. Let me start, President of the council members and staff. My name is John Cheslick. I'm the Senior Vice President with Veolia. And joining me here today is Don Rogers, who is a Client Services Manager for Veolia. Let me begin by talking about and giving you a little bit of background on Veolia. From there, I think Don will speak on some of the specifics of our local presence and maybe specifically about our approach to the maintenance review. And then I'll conclude at least our opening comments by rejoining to speak to these allegations that some of the public speakers are bringing forward on our involvement in Flint, Michigan. So let me just start off by saying Veolia, obviously is a global company focused on solving complex challenges in the water, in the waste, and energy, and really is a company fully engaged in shaping the world to be a more sustainable place. Equipment for your plant was supplied through a competitive bid to a constructor and part of that equipment came from Veolia Water Technologies. Veolia Water Technologies provides water and wastewater treatment equipment and technologies. Don and I are part of the Municipal Water Group. And the Municipal Water Group provides consulting and O&M services to cities, towns, and municipalities. And Veolia has been providing operations, maintenance, consulting services to communities across North America since 1972. And in that time, we've maintained a contract renewal rate of more than 95%. A sure sign that cities and towns that we serve are happy to have us as a partner. We currently work at over 280 water and wastewater plants, managed for 172 clients across 35 states. And while there are many companies providing O&M services, we're the largest here in North America. And we're proud of the track record of meeting the needs of the municipalities we serve. Let me ask Don to talk a little bit about our clients in the region and the specifics of the proposal on the maintenance review that we've provided to the city.
Thanks, John. Again, my name is Don Rogers. So a little bit about our experience in New York. As we mentioned, we are well respected by regulators in locales where we provide services. For example, in the city of Poughkeepsie, we've been providing services there since 1980. We have an outstanding performance record there, and recently the mayor and city manager expanded our services to include the water distribution and the sewer collection systems. Another one of our key clients is the city of Buffalo, New York. There we manage the city's water treatment system. We just finished a 10-year contract with them last year, and they renewed our contract for an additional 10 years. And there are many more examples such as these. Also, relevant to our discussion tonight, we have clients in Michigan. Two in particular, we signed a consulting contract with the city of Detroit in 2017, 2 years after the Flint issues. We provide services there regarding their water distribution system and wastewater collection system, and that contract is ongoing. We also signed another contract with the Downriver Utility Wastewater Authority that's in Wayne County, Michigan in 2018. That contract is for 20 years to manage the operations of their wastewater treatment plant. And that's about 70 miles from Flint. So they're very acquainted with what's going on there. Okay, regarding the equipment and systems provided by Veolia through its subsidiary Kruger at your wastewater treatment plant, the main system is called a biological aerated filter. It's been functioning extremely well. The effluent water quality going to the river is very, very clean. We do understand that one of the subsystems of this total system is used to concentrate the sludge. It has been losing excessive sand, and that occurs during backwashing where the sludge is concentrated. I understand in the past 2 weeks, the sand loss has been minimized and is now meeting specifications. In any case, Veolia Kruger is working very closely with the staff at the plant, and they speak with folks there 4 or 5 times a week. In any case, the issue of the sand loss will be resolved. Finally, regarding the maintenance operations audit, such an audit is a standard work that we do for clients across the country. We use a very tried and true system. It includes analyzing the asset registry on the computerized maintenance management system. We do employee interviews. We document the management systems and how the work is being recorded. We also review the inventory management. So with regard to the timing for this, Since the major systems at the plant are now substantially complete, now is an obvious time to conduct an assessment of the current status and formalize the maintenance plan to assure success. We're certainly happy to provide this service should the city decide to go ahead. A couple other items in reading the social media to try to address some of the issues that are brought up over and over. In our maintenance audit, we will be analyzing maintenance tasks being completed and recorded. We will be working with the employees hand in hand. We'll take a tour with whoever the superintendent deems appropriate, and we'll gain as much knowledge as we can in the total of 10 weeks that we have set aside to do this service. Another issue that seems to be a topic of conversation on social media is who is responsible for what, and are we going to try to make the audit put the employees in a bad light? This is just not the case. We will work diligently with the employees. If there are issues with management or the tools the employees have or the owners, we will clearly call out where the gaps are and how to fill them. So ultimately, we will write a report. We will come back to Binghamton, make a presentation, and answer questions. And the report will show how the staff at the plant and the owners can move forward to assure a successful maintenance system. So with that, I'll turn it back over to John, and he's going to make a few comments about Flint.
Thanks, Don. Well, I'll just begin by saying, despite a host of outrageous claims, including claims I've heard made by people to this committee, I can say with full confidence that Veolia North America is not to blame in Flint. Over time, we've been asked every question imaginable about Flint. And we've taken the time to provide all the answers to these questions on a dedicated website. I urge you to review it. That's where you'll find the facts about what Veolia North America actually did in Flint. This website is called veoliaflintfacts.com. But let me provide an overview. So first and foremost, we certainly agree that the Flint citizens have endured a horrible set of circumstances. We share their outrage, but without question, the blame for the Flint crisis rests squarely with a host of government actors, not Veolia North America. That's what a federal court of appeals has said. That's what a state of Michigan task force report has said. That's what an inspector general's report from the EPA has said. And that, with confidence, is what I tell you. Here's what Veolia's entire engagement in Flint consisted of. A 4-week, $40,000 focused on something called trihalomethanes. Trihalomethanes, not lead. That's it. It was a 4-week, $40,000 study focused on something other than lead. Here's another important fact. As you know, the critical event that went wrong in Flint was the government's decision to change water source to the Flint River rather than continue with water sourced from the city of Detroit. That decision occurred 9 months before Veolia set foot in Flint. That horrible wrong decision was made by the city while under state oversight and was approved by the regulators. Again, we've heard every question there is that could be asked about Flint. We've dedicated a website that addresses all the questions that have been asked. To learn the facts about our involvement in Flint, visit this website, Veolia, Veolia, Flint, F-L-I-N-T, facts, F-A-C-T-S, one word, .com. So with that, maybe I'll turn to your general questions about Veolia, us, the scope of work on this maintenance that we've proposed on.
Yeah, thank you both. And yeah, we can certainly open it up now to any discussion, any questions from any of you.
Madam President, if it's okay, I guess I'll break the ice.
Thank you, Gio. Go ahead.
No worries. John, Don, good evening. Thank you very much for being with us. I really appreciate it.
Evening.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I'm going to preface this by saying I have quite a number of questions, so I'm just going to, if it's okay with you both gentlemen, I'm just going to jump right in. What is your experience in conducting audits, and how many audits have you conducted? Maybe say the United States.
Don, you want to take that question?
Yes, well, we conduct an audit, an assessment of every treatment plant that shows interest in obtaining our services to operate and maintain their plants. So we operate 285 treatment plants now, and some clients, as you're doing in this case, potentially seek to have an audit without making any decision otherwise. We do that service as well. So the answer is, over the past 30 years, I've been involved in a couple hundred myself.
Appreciate that. If I can add to that, so you had stated earlier, so that's 172 clients that you have currently across 35 states in the US.
Yes.
Could you speak to what proportion of those 172 clients are municipally owned facilities? Are there any variations in governance structures across plants that might be similar or different to what you have observed with ours? And as an aside, the reason why I'm asking is what experience might you have with a municipally owned plant like ours that may have a similar governance structure, and what experiences you might have in that?
So maybe, Don, I'll try a little bit of this and then
Okay.
see if you can see if I miss any points. So Councilman, I would say, first of all, you're talking to people who work in the municipal water piece of Veolia. All of our clients, everything I've mentioned in terms of who the clients are all municipal agencies of some sort, some structure, whether that's a city, a town, municipal,
a county,
a county, a municipally organized water utility like the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District. So every one of our clients is a municipal agency with a public forum and a public sense of governance with elected and appointed officials, publicly elected and appointed. So processes like you're having right here, we're part of in every one of those, with every one of those clients we currently have or have had in the past. When we talk about our experience, we're talking really about our municipal experience, not our industrial experience, but our municipal experience.
Got it. Appreciate that. Could either or both of you speak to the entirety of systems, tools, and machines in the plant, in our sewage treatment plant that we are a co-owner of? Can you speak to which ones specifically are currently associated with Veolia in any way? Whether it's manufacturing, warranty, obviously I know there's overlap with some of those things, but just as some examples.
I'll let
I can do that, John.
Yeah, thank you, Don.
So without knowing exactly how much you're familiar with wastewater treatment, the basic parts of the plant are the primary treatment, secondary treatment, and solids handling.
Right.
The secondary treatment part is the part that Kruger provided. It's a biological system. It involved retrofitting existing tanks and producing 18 cells of which hold mixed liquor. And if you've seen the plastic material, the floating plastic material, that's that material grows microorganisms on it, and it's aerated, and that's what cleans the water. And then periodically those are backwashed, and to get the solids to settle, we add sand, and the solids were relatively heavy, so we were adding a lot of sand. And it took a while, as I understand it, and I just talked to Kruger today, that it's been working pretty well the last 2 weeks, and it sounded like this is going to be resolved, but it has taken a while. So in any case, the technology for this biological treatment system is provided by Kruger. They also provided blowers, pumps, piping, compressors, control panels, a lot of control technology, and the sand addition system with that equipment is called ActiFlow. That was provided by Kruger. And I think that hits the highlights.
Got it. Thank you. And forgive me, I'm kind of looking at my notes. Myself and three of my colleagues on this body, we were actually down at the plant today, earlier today for about 3 hours. So I knew about ActiFlow. Could you speak a little bit to BioSteer, if I'm saying that correctly?
Yeah, so BioSteer is the name of the media that is produced and added into the tanks. And it's a coined word by Kruger that is the technology used. It's called BioSteer.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you. If I could shift gears a little bit and just offer a few questions in relation to the audit specifically, just in a general sense, and obviously as well as it relates to us. If the audit finds failures of any of your equipment, Kruger, whomever it might be, or a subsidiary, how would this affect the outcome of the audit? Given that hypothetically it would be Veolia that would be conducting the audit. So when you're in a situation where you are auditing plant X and there are some tools, systems, or machinery that have your name on it, essentially, what are kind of some of the guidelines in relation to the audit as you go through, if those things cross paths at all, if they do, and if they do not, if you could explain why?
Let me just start with an answer for you, Councilman.
Sure.
We don't, when we're looking at a maintenance audit, it's really regardless of who the equipment supplier is, whether that's Veolia or some other, and to the effect that a piece of equipment is impacting the successful plant operations and causing an undue maintenance burden, we assess that like it was anybody else's piece of equipment. Our review is based upon operability and delivering the type of performance and maintainability that a customer should get, regardless of the vendor with whom that equipment comes from. Don, I don't know if there's anything more specific.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And we've done a number of audits where a subsidiary company had provided equipment. we handle the audit the same all the time. And the only thing that I would mention here is that I believe the Kruger equipment, particularly the ActiveFlow, is under warranty. So we have no motivation to do anything but be very transparent. And if there's anything we find that's not running well, it'll be fixed.
Our obligation, if you award us with this work, our obligation is to see that your interests are best expressed and protected, regardless of what that means. So if there's issues with oversight or the owner or an equipment vendor that's causing, maintenance concerns, that does, our obligation under this is to serve you. And sometimes that may mean saying things about where organizationally there can be improvements, or maybe sometimes it's a specific piece of equipment. But these reviews really involve, the system under which maintenance gets identified, performed, completed, recorded, and continues to improve over time.
Mhm. Thank you. Throughout the discussions that we've been having, I've been noticing, and I've spoken with a number of my colleagues, and I think this has been picked up on as well, that there are some words or terminologies. I honestly, I think the best word here is jargon that is being used. Some examples are audit, inspection, maintenance plan, and it almost kind of seems like some of these words are being used interchangeably. So I wanted to ask you both, in your professional experience, could you please speak to what is exactly and specifically associated and documented? And I'm going to preface this by saying I'm going to use the word audit here. What is exactly being associated and documented in the audit? What is it that you are auditing, inspecting, reviewing, whichever adjective you'd like to use? If you could speak to that specifically, please, so we can, as a larger group, gain some clarity on that.
John, do you want me to answer
Yeah,
that one?
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Okay, so, well, let's first of all be perfectly honest. The word audit originated with Binghamton. We might more universally say an assessment or maintenance plan. You're right, that those are used somewhat interchangeably, but there's a very standard format to do a maintenance assessment. And it's actually outlined in some detail in our proposal.
Mm-hmm.
But just to reiterate, it analyzes the tools available for administering and recording the maintenance work. Is it adequate? Is the computer system functioning properly? Is the asset registry complete? Are the work tasks and tools and financial information inputted to the system? There is a tour of the plant. It involves interviews with staff. Do they have the right tools? Are there conditions that lead to lack of efficiency? We would do some condition assessments on specific pieces of equipment. We would ascertain if the work is being recorded. We would view the documentation as work is recorded, and the reports that follow, so that the superintendent and the senior management can ascertain when to repair or replace equipment. And is inventory adequate? Do they have to wait for parts? Do they have parts on hand? What level do they have? All of these things are analyzed, and we write an ultimate report of the current status, and then we outline a plan to mediate any gaps in the system and recommend to you how to proceed.
Thank you for that. So would it be correct to say that, and I'll make sure I'm using the industry jargon that you just used. Does the information from the maintenance assessment feed into what would be a maintenance plan, given everything you just outlined?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And the specific aspects of the maintenance plan that would come from the assessment here is not going to be the same as we find it at another plant. I mean, everybody is unique, and we would focus on how to get to the most optimal organization and maintenance plan for you.
Got it. Madam President, if I may, I feel like I'm kind of talking here, and I recognize other colleagues may have other questions. I want to obviously, I'm not going to lie, I have more questions, but I don't want to stampede if anybody else would like to obviously ask something. So,
Okay.
Can I ask a couple quick questions, Madam President?
Of course, Councilman Strong.
Okay.
I'm hoping everybody
Thank
will
you,
ask
Don.
some questions.
All right. Thank you, John and Don, for being here. We appreciate it. Earlier today, when I was one of the 4 people that were down there, and I want to confirm what Don said. The plant people themselves said they speak to Viola maybe even more than 4 or 5 times a week, maybe 4 or 5 times a day at times. So I want to say, I thank you for that. It looks to me like that you've been responsive to them, and it looks like to be honest, some other vendors have not. So, I thank you for that. It looks like that you are responding to their needs with these current systems that are going on there. So that's a good thing. My question has to do with, I guess, timing is the best way to say it. Well, let me step back. I'm an accountant by trade. So the word audit to me, I like your term assessment better than audit in this situation. It feels like it's more appropriate than a pure audit. And it's more of an agreed upon procedures in the sense where you have certain procedures that you're doing and you're agreeing in your proposal to do certain things. Because I don't believe there's technically deadlines or anything like that. So would it be fair to say if you use audit or assessment, that I like to use the term adversarial? Would it be fair to say that this is a non-adversarial approach, at least to start, that we all want the same thing? We all want that water clean coming out the other end, to our western and southern neighbors. It goes without saying, we want that to be clean, that the idea is best practices, that it's how can we do better, not necessarily a gotcha to the employees or anything like that, that potentially, if let's say we had a first assessment and a second assessment, let's say 12 months from now, the second one, I would say, okay, how did we do? Maybe a little more accountability, but the first one to develop a baseline. I've heard the word baseline used continuously.
Well, you hit on a good point there.
Non-adversarial best practices, how can we make it better and what can we do to move forward?
Yes, you hit on a very good point there. This is totally not adversarial at all. I mean, we have the interest of the city and the employees at heart. We want to provide good input, make a good assessment, prepare a plan that will lead to some improvements if needed. We have nothing to be gained by being adversarial. Obviously, our whole career and our whole company success is dependent upon client satisfaction and references, actually. So, we're very sensitive to being in tune with the current, the local staff, what the needs are, and coming up with solutions that fit the circumstances.
Okay, thank you. And just kind of one other question, and it's kind of a multi-question based on timing. What I'm hearing, and my only real concern, and concerns from some people at the plant, you said a couple minutes ago, the timing is right because we're virtually complete. According to what they're telling us is that's true in some cases, and some cases it isn't. So let me use a specific example, and I'm sure there's more of them, and I know Councilman Scaringi was a little more technical than I was today, but they have down there, and I know Councilman Burns was down there today, and Council President Resnitti. They have the biggest backup generator that I think I've ever seen in my life down there. And it's basically they don't even know whether it's operational or not. They they use the term either breaker or electrical coordination summary. It's not done. The breakers have been set at minimum. I'm using as technical as I can be just to make it important, because it's easier in my mind to not be theoretical, but to be specific. They don't know if they said, what's the biggest thing that could default this whole plant? And obviously the number one thing is if the power goes out. Biggest, like I said, biggest generator I've ever seen, Cummins engine, blah, 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 blah. They have no idea if the power goes off right now, if that thing's going to kick on or not. They can't get any answers from people. They're trying to get a coordination between the electricians and the engineers and the suppliers and the vendors. And to me, that's unfathomable that we could even get to this point with that much money and having a piece of equipment like that they don't know. Based on what I can tell, they're trying to get the information and they can't. So the question is twofold. In a situation like that, let's say in 3 months from now, they have all those answers and you come in 3 months from now, the issue in maintenance and looking at that generator as part of this whole thing would look different than it will if you came in tomorrow. The people at the plant are in essence requesting, they said to be flat out to the four of us, we absolutely want this to happen, but we would like a little time to take ownership and more ownership, I guess is the best word to say, of the rest of this equipment that we haven't totally even gotten handed over to us yet before we get a maintenance plan and baseline. So in that situation or other situations across the plant, how does it differ? So they're basically saying, we want this, but we need a little time to gather and get more stuff. What would your response to that be as to why now versus, let's say, 60 days from now, or in that specific situation with the generator, how would that look in your maintenance plan if our people don't have what they need to get that thing operational? How would that come across? Would you help us talk to the vendors and coordinate that, or not necessarily?
No, absolutely. That is a key piece of equipment that is relied upon when power is lost from the grid. That's not something that I know about, but I certainly know in general, since I've been in charge of running plants all over the US. We would assist them in finding out what's the status of that. And in a general sense, I spoke with Ron Lake a few days ago, and I understand that substantial completion has been issued to the prime contractors and the subs. So how this could be such a gap on the generator, I don't know, but that's something we could help resolve in short order. So again, with that, given that fact, I would say it's a very good time because we are highly connected in the industry and we run these systems all over the United States. I don't know exactly what generator's there, but I'm sure we would know it and we could figure out what's the status of it.
So because it's, last quick thing, so it's so early in the handoff from all of the vendors and contractors to us, that's not necessarily a negative thing, that you would basically start where we're at and move forward from there rather than, and if there's some things that aren't up to snuff because it's not our, I don't want to say our fault, I want to lay blame because we already said it's not adversarial, then you would help us with that as well as part of the process.
No, from what I know about the circumstances and what you're saying now, this is a very logical time to engage a firm such as Veolia to assist you.
Okay, thank you.
And Madam President?
Councilman Burns, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. You know, the builders were all given time to finish. They went over their estimated time, but they were all given time to finish. And I don't think any of them, if they weren't completed, they wouldn't want me to come in to inspect their work yet. They might say, no, don't come yet because we're not done yet. And what my colleagues were just talking about is that it's so early in this handoff and the employees don't have all the manuals. They don't have all the YouTube videos. They have these fantastic YouTube videos, as you probably know. They show them how to even put in a rubber hose for different parts of the assets. And they've been putting in, since it was handed to them after it was completed, they have been putting in assets they've completed over 12,000 work orders so far. And if you were going to do, as you call it, an assessment maintenance plan. Okay, so if you wouldn't go into the builder and say, we're going to inspect your work that we expected when you were all finished, but we're going to inspect it early, they'd say, no, it's not done, please wait. So to get a maintenance plan, if everything isn't in the computer, and they showed us the computer today, it's the CMMS plan, it's the e-maintenance is the software. And it is really beautiful. I mean, it tells you what, every day they come in, they have the work orders. It'll say, change this oil in this machine. It'll say how much oil it gets. It will say how much, if they have a spare part for it. If they don't have the spare part, where they can get the spare part, how much the spare part costs. And they've put thousands of these assets into the machine, into the computer. But so if you're going to go do an assessment from their maintenance plan, let's say it was your place and it was just finished, would you say to your superintendent, I want to do the maintenance plan now? And he said, well, no, he didn't say that. He's welcoming it. He's saying, you know, I can't stand in the way. I look like I'm trying to hide something. But if he were to say, I just need a little more time just to get it all ready for you to do it, wouldn't that be, I mean, and also Ray Standish, our guy from the city, said that if we were going to do another assessment, that it would be like a year or 2 years down the road. We would do this now, and then 2 years down the road, we would do another one to make sure everything was up to snuff. But if you can't give us a maintenance plan for the things that we don't even know, that we don't even have the manuals for, that we don't have the YouTube videos for, how can you give us a maintenance plan that we can wait another 2 years? We'll have to do another maintenance plan. Wouldn't it be better to spend the $66,000 6 months from now, as opposed to now, when it's really, you can't say that the place is complete yet if they're not complete with their work. That's a very long question, but I think you got my drift.
I think the question is basically around why not wait, correct, Councilman?
Yes, why not wait till the employees and the superintendent say, okay, we're ready for you, you know, and now and welcome it, say, we think it's great. Now you come in and tell us where we might be missing something, how we can make it better. But so just to go in when they're not ready is kind of waste of money, if you ask me.
Let me start a little bit, and I'll let Don go forward. I think one of the concepts is that this is an audit, like your tax documents are due on April 15th, and you want to make sure your tax documents are done so that they can stand up to an audit. I think the spirit of these assessments are really more in taking a picture of where you are today. What are the highest priorities for the organization to focus on in order to move the whole maintenance process, the whole process forward? And by that, I mean, how do we work collectively to make sure that assets are up and running to treat the wastewater? How do we work together to make sure there's a good focus on the right things and moving really a continuum of areas of maintenance process and skill forward? What's the battle plan for the most important things we should be doing right now to prepare us for the future? I like your number of, you know, we've done 12,000 work orders. I like that. I don't know what it means though, Councilman. Does that mean we should have done 12,001 and we did 12,000, which is world class? Or does that mean there were 24,000 that should have been done and we did 12,000? That piece of data by itself doesn't tell me the whole story. 12,000 out of 24,000 that should have been done is not world class, and it's something we should work on. 12,000 out of 12,001 is world class performance. I'll let Don take a little shot at your answer.
So I think John makes a good point. This is a snapshot of where you are now. The sooner the better is my answer. The sooner you would take advantage of an assessment from Veolia, the sooner you will get to a maintenance plan that will assure success. And maybe things are pretty good. I mean, we don't know because we haven't actually done an assessment, but the idea of having one and taking advantage of our input makes all the sense in the world. I mean, the contractors have been out of there for a while now. And if there's some lingering things not completed or the staff hasn't had a chance to put in all the assets or whatever, we'll help them get there. And we'll show them how to do it, where the gaps are, and put them on a path for success. We're not, like we said, we're not there to find fault. We're gonna create a plan that will make them successful.
Madam President.
Go ahead, Councilman Scaringi.
Thank you. John and Don, if I can kind of piggyback on what Councilman Strawn and Councilman Birds were just talking about, but be much more direct. So as some examples to be specific, all the equipment at the plant has not been turned over, kind of speaking to what Councilman Strawn was speaking to with respect to ownership. There are some situations where not all of the O&M manuals, the final draft versions of the to be specific, are not in hand. When you take all of these things, could you speak to specifically how Veolia documents that in its maintenance assessment when the discrepancy is a variable that is not plant-based, right? So in layman's terms, if you audit how I play the guitar, but I've only had 3 lessons in learning how to play the guitar. I'm not a master, I'm a beginner. When you audit me playing the guitar, how do you document in that assessment Gio's skill level is at level X due to thing Y? That is not his fault yet because he's only had 3 lessons, right? So if Jane Doe or John Smith at the plant is doing something that they're supposed to do, it's a function of their job, but for some exogenous reason that is not their fault, they are not meeting a standard or a spec that they should be, to John, use your world, right? Have a world-class plant. How do you document that discrepancy so we as the owners know what the actual issue is?
You want me to go ahead, John, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
you and I are probably going to say the same thing, but go ahead.
So let me just point out that the assessment, so that this isn't in your back of your mind, is not done by staff or employee. This is done by work and groups. And if there's something lacking in terms of skill, we will describe that fully and give you some options as to how to provide the training and knowledge and skill that the employees need for this new thing, this new maintenance, whatever it might be. I mean, it's a challenge. There's $275 million worth of new equipment there, some of it the most sophisticated in the world. It's unlikely that the good folks in Binghamton are all going to catch on right away on how to do the maintenance on all this equipment. So they could use some assistance and we would help them. And we would line out, how are you going to get from where you are to where you want to be?
I would add to what Don said, Councilman, that these assessments are done on a spectrum. Okay, so to kind of the point, don't audit me on my guitar playing until I get to Carnegie Hall. You don't get to Carnegie Hall without some guidance and skill through the path. The methodology we propose and undertake these with are very defined methodologies. what is your predictive maintenance system? How do you go about doing it? Do you have oil analysis? Are you currently gathering oil analysis? So we'll look at preventive, predictive, corrective maintenance activities through a well-recognized system of what are the elements of a successful program, what do they look like? And they can be implemented when you have a new piece of equipment, when you have an old piece of equipment, as you're installing new pieces of equipment, because they can help you assess, are we thinking about having the right corrective and preventive, particularly the predictive and preventive processes in place for that emergency generator. You know, you don't want to accept an emergency generator and then 2 years later try to figure out what maintenance should we have been setting up to do last year, because you should have been doing that last year. So everything is on a spectrum and what the assessment does is it looks across all of the areas and says, you know, you're doing really good here, but we probably need, out of everything we could focus on, raising this level of performance, or this area is probably where you'll see the biggest overall improvement. There is no organization that'll get a 10 out of 10 on every calendar. And believe me, I've been doing this for 40 years, and everyone is up and down on the spectrum of where they are today and where do they need to go and where do they want to go as an organization. So maybe that answers your question, but there is no right and wrong answer. It is where you are. Here's our assessment of where you are. Here's the way to get to the next place. Here's our recommendations of the high priority areas to focus on.
The other thing with regard to O&M manuals, it's common practice to issue the O&M manuals as soon as the equipment is put into service. Otherwise, how would the staff know how to maintain it or operate it? And as things develop and things change, it's a living document. I mean, a lot has been discovered about how to optimize the active flow in the last year that's not in the manual. And it's going to have to be updated, and Kruger's working on it. And that's just one example. So,
and I think in Councilman Burns' example, it tells me that they've taken these, it tells me good things. It tells me they've taken these preliminary O&M manuals and they've put them in their system and they're starting to generate work requests from that. So what Council Burns tells me about that they're using the system, that's good. It tells me they've taken these manuals in whatever condition they were in, and they began the process of utilizing that for maintenance activities. That is a good thing.
No, I mean, to interject, I mean, it is a good thing. I mean, you know, with my memory, I mean, the exact number was 12,116 entries. I mean, that was the number that was that we saw there today. So, you know, yes, it is. You know, I would agree with that, and I appreciate, you know, whether it's preventative or maintenance or whatever it might be. But John and Don, I've got to be honest with you that to me, that's important, but that sounds procedural. So my question really is more, in a process that you assess, when a deficiency is found, that deficiency may be due to employees at the plant are not doing their job, or employees at the plant are not doing their job because they haven't received the proper or total training yet, or they haven't received the final draft of the O&M manual. So what I'm asking is, in an audit, how do you differentiate that discrepancy? How do you document that so we as owners know that difference on a substantive level? And I realize that dependent upon the tool, dependent upon the system, dependent upon the machine, that's very individualistic. substantively, right? What a generator needs is not what a computer system needs. I understand that, but I'm talking about how do you document those discrepancies, right? I mean, I'm assuming hundreds of audits over years, 172 municipally owned plants across 35 states. I'm assuming you guys have run across this once at least, right?
No,
so how do you differentiate that discrepancy?
Well, we simply analyze the circumstance and tell the truth. And I must say, in a vast majority of cases, the employees, if there's anything lacking, it's not because they don't want to do a good job. It's because they don't have the tools or the know-how or the explanation of how to do it. Because 99.9% of the employees want to do a good job, and they do a good job. But there are cases where skills or know-how is lacking, and we document that, and we recommend to the owner and management to provide it. So in a vast majority of cases, the issues with regard to know-how are not employee-based, they're management-based.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilwoman Freeman?
Thank you, Madam President. I actually have a question for Corporation Counsel that's related to this. I know that on the March 15th work session, we were told that we would be able to take a look at the contract, even though that may or may not be usual practice. I have not yet seen the contract. I'm wondering if that is coming down the pipeline before our vote on Wednesday, or when we might expect to be able to see the contract.
No, as we discussed at that meeting, you've been provided with the form of contract and you've been provided with the proposal. I don't have anything else.
Well, the contract, I mean, we received it was a blank template. I mean, I'm looking, okay, so when I'm asking this question, I'm thinking specifically back to, I think it was 2019, before I was on council, and council had approved a $140,000 audit that was then, the deliverable was an oral report and there was no written report. So thinking of that, keeping that in mind, I really am concerned. I would love to be able to see the scope of services, for example, or the specific.
You have the scope of services. It was provided with the RL, with the original RL.
But, okay.
I apologize. I don't have anything else to provide for you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is that a hand, Councilman Scoringi? I think it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Madam President. Thank you. Manufactured equipment and processes have specs that go along with them respectively. Obviously, over time, we've enveloped and received a lot of information, whether it's internal controls, whether it is anecdotal conversations with plant employees, management, discussions within the governance structure. We've received a lot of information from the DEC over the years. What would a Veolia audit add to the information that we already have for the owners, the community, and so on?
John, you want me to take that one?
Sure.
Okay. So I think we pointed out the key areas where we would be making an analysis. And as John said, it's a continuum for each assessment. And I like, we agreed earlier, assessment is the better term. And we would describe the pluses and minuses in each of the categories, where there's room for improvement, what's good, and develop a written plan that outlines how to fill the gaps and assure success for the future. And it'll be a written document, as I said, and we will come there and explain answer questions, explain what we have seen and how to move forward.
And Councilman, I would just add that, you'll have staff that's working on this, of maintenance folks that do this routinely across the Veolia municipal water entities. These are practitioners, they're engineers, they're mechanics, they're electricians, they're practitioners of, they're CMMS people. They are practitioners of maintenance.
Thank you. Reviewing the bid that Veolia submitted, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going a little bit, forgive me, my eyes are kind of bouncing around as I'm looking at different parts of my screen here for notes. So the audit is a 10-week period?
Yes.
Okay. I believe in your bid that Veolia submitted, there was something in there regarding proprietary evaluations on the part of Veolia. And I think there was a section that said, so Veolia is auditing the plant, and Veolia looks at the owners and says, while we're doing this, I'm sorry, forgive me, assessment. As we're doing this assessment, we need information X, whatever that is, right? You're coming in as kind of an externality, if you will, right? That's a very fair question for you as an auditor to ask. I believe I read if the information is not received within a given amount of time, I think it said 2 weeks, if memory serves me correctly, that there's something proprietary that Veolia may use in place of that information if it's not received within a given amount of time. I was wondering if you could speak to what that proprietary and evaluative information or model rather is, and maybe if you could give an example or two of what that might be.
Don, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm sort of scratching my head on that one. I have to be honest. I haven't had that issue. We ask for information and we get high cooperation. I haven't had an occurrence where we had to substitute a model or other similar information.
Yeah, Councilman, let me, one of the things Veolia has and utilizes, as you have come to learn, we operate a lot of water and wastewater facilities, each with a maintenance system. And within that, we have a catalog of standardized PMs, CMs, SOPs, et cetera, for a lot of the equipment made by and in service in plants in the United States, okay? Mm-hmm. So, for example, let's say you didn't have a SOP for a particular pump that was turned over. We would go and look at our catalog of standard maintenance intervals, protocols that we have, and say, okay, you didn't have the SOP, but this is what we see for maintaining a pump of this size across. These are the PMs, these are the CMs that manufacturers are recommending be performed for this piece of equipment.
And just as an aside for anybody who's listening, I think oftentimes we tend to forget. We start talking in we start talking in acronyms and forgetting that a lot of times people may not know what that inherently is, right? SOP, standard operating procedure.
Yeah, so maybe I'll say SOP, SMP standard. If I say these things, standard maintenance procedure.
Right.
Preventive maintenance. PRM is a predictive maintenance. CM is a corrective maintenance activities.
Right. And I would fully expect, and I think all of my colleagues would agree with me. I wasn't trying to infer with the question that you wouldn't receive that level of cooperation from the city of Binghamton or the plan employees or anything like that. I mean, I'll bet all the money in the world that you'll get top notch as it relates to that. I was just wondering if you could maybe speak to an example in maybe the recent past where you have experienced something like that and what it was, if any, which is, it sounds like is what you're saying, if there was anything proprietary that you may have had to substitute or fill in or anything like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No.
Councilman Squingy, you're good?
I've got two more if nobody has any other questions. Thank you, Madam President.
Go ahead.
Just to shift here for a little bit. You both kind of spoke a little earlier about discussion points related to Flint and other related matters. And I will say in the broadest sense, and I think most reasonable people would recognize this, right? When you're a firm, you eventually get to a point where the scale and the scope of what you deal with, you inevitably are going to run into something at some point over time, right? I mean, if there's one thing that we all share in common, we're all humans and we're all imperfect, right? Nobody's perfect 100% of the time. So it may or may not be Flint specifically, but when Veolia has come into a situation like that, could you maybe speak to what percentage of the projects that you've worked on or the clients that you work with have either resulted in public health crises, and what was kind of the post facto, if you will, of those situations, right? So if Veolia ran into something, and maybe even it wasn't, genuinely, Veolia didn't do something wrong, it wasn't their fault. Have you tried to alter your position or maybe implement a new set of policies that have helped inform the public of what is going on? What role as a stakeholder in a situation like that do you see Veolia playing?
Maybe I can answer your question, Congressman, broadly, working with a lot of clients like yourself in municipal organizations. The role we play at really 90% plus of the facilities we operate is the operator and maintainer. And of course, as the operator and maintainer, just like your staff, we really understand that operations and maintenance can go a long way, but it can't cover 100% of the needs of a facility. And so one of the things we really spend a lot of our focus and time on is making sure our municipal clients are selecting the best, most cost-effective areas to put their capital investments and replacement investments. We've all heard of the scorecard reports on America's aging infrastructure. And one area we find that our clients need advice on is, out of all the things out there that I have a need for, where should I be investing for updating my plant, my facility, the reliability of the service that I'm giving to my constituents, to assure they have ample, safe, and wastewater that's fully treated. And the area that our clients most often need some focus from us and help from us is really in the asset selection area.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. Lastly, John and Don, is there a possibility going forward, maybe to have direct communication with you, whether it's a office phone or email address or something like that? Is that something that we could take advantage of you if we,
Sure.
had some follow-up questions or anything like that?
Yeah, Don, I can't remember which of us, Don, did I sign the proposal, or did you sign the proposal, or?
I don't remember. I don't remember signing it, but we'll send you our email.
We'll send you
and phone number. We'll send it to the city clerk.
Perfect. Great.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, everyone, for the time.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Madam President, I just wanted to thank you and the council and the staff for the time that you've given us and your interest, and Veolia's interest in your community and your plant. And we would love to have the opportunity to do the kind of job that your folks and you would like us to do, to make sure, in this case, your assets and the focus for the maintenance is in the direction that will serve to grow the facility and the plant and staff. So thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you very much for coming and
Thank you.
spending a little over an hour with us. You take good care. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. So we are going to move on now to RL 21-81. I think I'm correct. And then is the chief with us? Chief Zukoski, are you here?
Oh, I'm going to be substituting in for him tonight.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
Doing okay. Tell us a little bit about RL 21-81.
Okay. First of all, my name is Officer John Lavachek with the City of Binghamton Police Department. I work down in our crime prevention unit. I'm responsible for composing and managing the department's grants. We are in the process of compiling an application for a grant called the Community-Based Crime Reduction Program. This program requires an MOU be signed between the department, the city, and sorry, my camera keeps slipping on me. But the community partners that we're going to be working with, along with the department and the city, all have to sign an MOU for this grant. The grant is going to focus on two things. It's going to be reducing acts of violent crime. We're going to specifically focus on aggravated assaults and incidents of shots fired within our community. We have 2 target locations on the Binghamton West Side and then the downtown corridor, where we're going to focus those efforts to deter that crime. The other part of the program will focus on getting officers and our community youth together and interacting in a positive light in a law enforcement capacity, to try to build and foster relationships between community members and the department. So the RL introduces the MOU that's required to submit the application. If there's any other questions about it, I can expand further.
I'm just curious, and I don't know if you have the answer to that yet, but what might that look like? Those however you engage in the community, you said in a bit of a different way than the normal, way the police officers intervene or interact with community. Can you just give me a little bit, do you have any examples of what that might look like? That's different?
Yeah, different now. Now it's, I don't know, our patrol guys have not a lot of time to go out and interact with the community. Our plan is to spend, it's written in the application, to spend at least 2 officers 15 hours a week at the Boys and Girls Club for after school program, whether it's interacting in sports programs, we've talked about dance programs, or if it's just helping kids get their homework done. That time speaking with Mary Beth Smith over at the Boys and Girls Club, it seems like that's going to be the most valuable time of the program.
Do you have any questions? Councilwoman Freeman?
Thank you, Madam President. Hi, I apologize if you mentioned this at the beginning because I missed the first part of what you said. So again, I apologize if you addressed this already. But underneath letter D, staffing, subheading A, there is a mention of data collection and analysis. I was wondering what kind of data will you be collecting, and how will you be analyzing that?
That will focus more on the deterring crime. We're going to track acts of violence. Like I said, we're going to specifically focus on aggravated assaults and incidents where we have confirmed shots fired in the city. So we're going to work to try to deter those acts of violence and drive them down. And the analyzing crime will be, like I said, we're going to focus on 2 areas within the city, much like our GIVE grant does. And that will be in the downtown corridor. If you think of the areas around State Street, Court Street, Columbus Park, those areas, and then the West Side corridor would run most of Main Street, and then north of there up to the First Ward area.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'm just a little bit confused that the data collection would be among the program participants, or that's separate? The data would just be like all of that data from that area of aggravated assaults and shots fired?
The department will, in the program, it's like, I don't know if you missed this in the beginning, we're going to work on driving down the acts of violence and working with our youth. And the part of driving down the acts of violence, we have to, in the parameters of the grant, we have to track data, and we have to show that we are accomplishing our goals of reducing these acts of violence. And that analyzing this, the acts of crime is how we're going to prove to the DOJ that this program is working. We do plan on utilizing the Flint Institute, which we used recently. There will be money requested through this program to have an outside agency come in and analyze the data, just so the DOJ knows that we're not trying to skew the numbers in our favor in any way.
I see. So to make sure I'm understanding correctly, the assumption is that maybe the program participants will come from that geographic block that you described, and in participating in this program will maybe be deterred from committing aggravated assault or shooting a gun, and then that will be reflected in the data analysis that you'll be doing of those crimes in that geographic area overall.
Yep, that's the goal.
Okay. And my other question is, why is this expedited?
The grant deadline to apply is actually next Monday, and they request that I submit 72 hours prior to that deadline. So I apologize. I haven't asked for an MOU to be attached to many of my grants, and this was kind of last minute. So that's why it's expedited.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. Hello there. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good, good. So based upon the questions that my co-counsel person had just asked, do you have evidence-based data to say there's a correlation between youth programs and driving down crime in certain areas?
Do I have
Yes. If
prepared right now? I don't.
no, I mean, but so if this project is to be successful,
Mhm.
do we have models or exemplars that have shown that community-based programs housed in one facility targeting two different areas of the community reduce crime or have impacts overall?
We're gonna base the model of the program off of the DOJ's Project Safe Neighborhoods. It's run through the Attorney General's office, and I believe the original program was started in Chicago. I don't have the year when it was started. I could get more information for you down the road, but I don't have that on me right now. I'm sorry.
That would be great. So, and I wanted to know specifically, so interventions like playing basketball and helping with homework or being in the Boys and Girls Club would impact one's lives so much so that crime would be reduced? Is that
that coupled with evident, I don't know if I didn't explain this properly. There will be funds for hotspots policing or saturation patrols to kind of saturate areas that are affected by crime. That's where the analyzing crime data will come in. So if we see a location that we're seeing a persistent, I guess, flare up in where we're seeing crime happen, we will put patrols in that area to try to reduce the crime. That coupled with interacting with, youth in our community will hopefully drive down crime numbers.
I know this is tough. I'm sorry. I know we have a lot of questions, and you were not told that we would ask this level of detail. I do have one more question for you. So again, well, maybe two, because you just said, so when there is a high crime area, based upon data, you will increase the number of police and the frequency of the patrols in that area. That's what this is also dedicated towards?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then finally, in the letter we received, it says some assistance some of these funds will be used to improve the police athletic league, such as a new dock and HVAC system.
Mm-hmm.
So what percentage is actually going to children and implementation of youth programming compared to like the HVAC system and a dock and increased policing in targeted areas?
Well, our police athletic league, the Binghamton Police Athletic League, is it's a tuition free, I guess, or there's no charge to attend the camp. So our goal there is to update the facilities that really need to be updated up there with the Police Athletic League. As far as money that's going to go right to children's program, you're going to see that in the Boys and Girls Club. I believe it's around just over $140,000 that's going to go to the Boys and Girls Club as a sub-awardee on the grant. They will receive money to support like staffing, along with supporting like paying for travel for some of their programs. We talked about buying like a dance costume. I don't know much about dance, but just purchasing equipment. Uniforms for the step team, I'm being told. And then like sports equipment will go right into the Boys and Girls Club to try to support their programs.
Thank you. Do we know the estimate award amount for this grant?
Give me 1 second. It looks like $625,000.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilman Burns.
Yeah. Hello, officer. How do I say your last name?
I'm sorry.
What was your last name again, officer?
Lavacek.
Lavacek. Well, thank you, Officer Lavacek, for being here. My question is the aggravated assault. I mean, I'd love to see the numbers come down, but I'm just wondering, it's a certain age group that goes to the Boys and Girls Club. So do we know that a lot of aggravated assaults come from that age group?
No, we're not claiming that, your 10 through 14-year-olds are committing the majority of aggravated assaults in our community. That's not what I'm driving at here.
Right.
Aggravated assaults are a crime that we experience at a higher level than any other crime in the city of Binghamton, especially when it comes to a violent act against another. Our goal, we have seen, and I don't have numbers in front of me, we have seen a rise in aggravated assaults within the city and within the 2 target locations I've described earlier. Our goal is, while working with the Boys and Girls Club, is to foster a good relationship between members of our community, especially the youth. And then on the other side of things, also work to saturate areas that are affected by this high crime rate to drive down those numbers.
Right. So maybe that as the kids get older or something, I'm just saying that we wouldn't see results for a while, because if they're not committing the crimes, I'm just wondering how we bring the crime down. But
well,
I don't know if
it's a 2-pronged approach. While we're trying to foster good relationships with our community, we're also trying to reduce the
and I
actual
love
violent
that.
crime.
I love everything you're doing with the money. I'm just wondering about that aggravated assault thing. And I love the PAL. So, all right, thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Why don't we move on? Thank you, Officer Lavicek, right? Is that right?
That's right. Take care,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Take good care. Let's move on to Chief Eggleston. We have a couple of RLs. Are you here? There you are.
Yes.
How are you?
Very good.
Good. We have 21-74 and 75.
Okay.
Right?
74.
No, 72 is 75. Sorry.
Okay.
RL 21-72. Right.
72, yes. That's I'm not sure if Jared wants to speak on that, but that's a small piece of property along Chapman Street, which the state has the right of way to, which they're signing over to the city so we can build a new fire station. That's what 72, the basis of basically what 72 is.
Any questions? Councilwoman Freeman?
Thank you, Madam President. Hi, Chief Eggleston. How are you?
Oh, very good. How are we doing?
Good. I just have a question about page 8 in the packet. Forgive me if this is like being lost on me, but this is talking about a motion or a resolution that was adopted in 2017 about land that's next to the town of Vestal Library. Is that included in error, or is that connected in a way that I'm missing?
Chief, I can jump in here. Hi, Councilwoman Freeman. That was an example resolution provided by New York State DOT as to a draft of what's required to be included from a similar project in another municipality. This is strictly a request by DOT that it receive council resolution approval. I'm sorry, I should have explained that maybe in the email, but this is just an example of a resolution information to include with City Council. You're correct. This is an Vestal project.
That makes a lot of sense. I was like, I must be missing something here. Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Thank you, Jared. Okay, any other questions? Let's move on to the next one.
I was also confused by that Vestal page in there also, so you're not alone. The next one is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Binghamton Johnson City Joint Sewage Board for emergency confined space rescue. We've been doing this since 2009. Every time they go into a pipe, go into a tank to clean, do maintenance, whatever, they have to have an emergency confined space rescue team who can go in and get them out. This is a 3-year extension of our last agreement.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Looks like you're up again for RL 21-76.
Okay, the last one is our fire mechanic. For some reason, our fire mechanic is the only individual in the CSEA union. The DPW mechanics and the police mechanic are all in the Teamsters union. It was brought to my attention that his salary is not the same as theirs. And in my world, our fire mechanic is worth his weight in gold. He works on fire engines, diesel engines, gasoline engines, fire trucks. He does a lot of specialty work. We're extremely lucky to have him. And I just wanted his salary to be comparable, which is actually equal to the other city mechanics.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Oh, somebody has a hand up? No? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thank you very much.
Yep. Have a good night.
You too.
Oh.
Thank you.
Was that a hand, Councilman Burns? No, it was a goodbye. Okay. All right. All these little windows thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on to Steve Carson. Steve, are you here? I see your name, but we can't hear you. Steve, can you hear us? We can't hear you. Can anybody hear him? It's not just me, right? Oh, there he is. Okay. Well, still can't hear you.
Steve, it says you're able to speak on our end. Maybe your mic isn't hooked up properly or configured.
No? All right, so why don't we move on and come back to you, Steve? Is that all right? Okay. So we have RL 21-73 with Megan. I can't imagine Megan is here.
I'll jump on for Megan.
Okay.
This is I have a couple RLs regarding a sale of city property as part of the side lot program at properties that were demolished by the city of Binghamton. So the first one is 14 Lydia Street in the first ward. That's 21-73. The second one is 21-74 for Hotchkiss Street, I believe in Councilman Strawn's district. So these have received review by planning, code enforcement, and the mayor's office. And there are descriptions of the side lots and what the folks will be doing with the properties. Also, assessment has looked at the sale price to confirm that it's a fair market value for the vacant lots.
Any questions? Councilwoman Freeman?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question, I guess, generally about the side lot program that I realized that came up with this with RL 73. So I noticed that this person's mailing address is not adjacent to the vacant lot, but they own another property that's adjacent. So the side lot program can be for any vacant lot that's adjacent to any property that somebody owns, even if that's not their residential address.
We don't mandate that the person is an owner occupied address. We focus on the property owner.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Jared. So Steve, I see you. I don't know if I can hear you.
All right, let's try this again. Can you
Yes, we can hear you. Great, thank you. Talk to us a little bit about RL 21-77.
That's a fairly simple one. A lot of agencies, when they get to the end of the fiscal year, have to move their budgets around, the line items that are around in their budgets. This was the case for the YWCA for last year. Since it exceeded 10% of their overall budget, it has to be approved by City Council. Trying to get better about having the actual budgets for City Council to see here. So here is the new budget. It's a reduction in the weekend resident assistance, but an increase for the residential director and social worker. So shifting some funds around, that's really all it is. The overall amount of the grant stays the same.
Okay. Councilwoman Friedman?
Thank you, Madam President. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing all right. What can I do for you?
Well, first of all, you look like you are in an exotic place, so that's nice. I was just wondering if you could tell me why this RL is expedited.
Oh, because this is a bill from this is to close up the contract from last year. Generally, we like to have all the invoices in by the end of February for audit purposes. So the sooner this is done, the better. Plus, the agencies have to pay in advance. So we do everything via reimbursement. So if an agency is asking to get repaid for something, it means they've already expended those funds. So this is an attempt to close out that count, basically.
Okay, thank you. Is this same, I guess I can, well, I'll wait for, I'm going to ask you the same question for the next RL as well, but we can wait for that one.
Okay. Any other questions? Great. Thank you. So moving on, thank you, Steve. Moving on to Charlie Pearsall. Hi, I think I saw you here earlier. We have
Steve has another RL, Council President.
Say that again.
Steve had an additional RL in the packet. Right, Steve?
Yeah, that actually surprised me. But yeah, there's the additional one for FY46 agency funding. It was a later one from.
I don't have that in front of me, so but okay, go ahead.
This is RL 21-84. It's a request to expedite. It's authorizing the mayor to enter into agreements with several agencies to utilize FY46 Cdbg funds. These agencies per se weren't necessarily awarded, but the programs and the targeted agencies were somewhat chosen already in the FY46 program. These are the non-competitive Cdbg agencies. So for example, the Boys and Girls Clubs Teen Center, the Boys and Girls Clubs After Hours program, Metro Interface Binghamton Homeownership Academy, First Ward Action Council Senior Home Repair Program, Fairview Recovery Services Opioid Addiction Caseworker, the MHAS Mobile Crisis Service, and Fairview Recovery Services HMIS User Fee. All of these were in the budget already for FY46 for 2021. We're already approved in general. This is just allocating those funds specifically to the target agencies.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions? Councilwoman Friedman.
Thank you, Madam President. What constitutes a non-competitive Cdbg?
So once CDAC makes gets the applications for program services, they will then go through a competitive process to determine who to allocate funding to. The mayor's office, however, does have the right to allocate funds directly to agencies if they so choose. These were allocated as part of the 2021 budget, separate from the competitive services pool, if you want to, if that makes sense. So basically, the mayor's office awarded money directly to the Boys and Girls Club for 2 different programs. Same thing with, say, Fairview First Ward Action Council for their senior home repair program. So these were already sort of awarded directly to those agencies. And then later, there was a pool of roughly 116,000, which 8 other agencies applied for.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. And my favorite question, why is this expedited?
Because it's April 19th and the contract program year, the contracts are supposed to run from January to December. So we're behind as is. We want to get these agencies, get this funding going now. Some can't even start for example, First Ward can't even start doing senior home repairs until these contracts are enabled. I generally do backdate the contracts to January 1st, but if you're a smart agency, you're not going to do billing until you have the agreement in hand. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I think that was it for Steve. Thank you. So now we can move on to Charlie. Hi, how are you?
Good evening. Good.
Good to see you.
The RL, thank you. The RL I have in front of you tonight, it sounds easier than it reads. What we're trying to do, and the board is trying to do, we've made a position of electrical engineer that has been approved by the civil service plant, or the civil service treatment. They actually consider it wastewater treatment plant, electrical engineer. That's semi-redundant. To fund this, we're actually asking the head electrician position, which has been vacant since the first of the year, be defunded totally. The position was filled for the computer systems engineer on February 22nd. And the person that we hired is actually very high caliber. He came from a well-known aerospace company. He's familiar with our SCADA, all of our systems. So he is a treasure to us. He's been doing the job since February 22nd. Civil service had the opportunity to act on this in March. It didn't make it. They tabled it. They then acted on it later in March. I believe it was the 24th. So in order to calculate the salaries, the changes, and you should have attached behind it a worksheet that actually details, that won't show up. There's 3 action items on the actual personnel services line. We're defunding the electrical engineer for $70,000, or I'm sorry, the head electrician, $70,707. The electrical engineer is a new position, but we only have to fund that from the time the council can actually act on it. Because we had to set a date, I attempted an earlier date. That RL was amended. We're now hoping for the February 24th date to be his first date at this new position. And we'll get to the why this should be expedited, which will be the next question. The computer systems engineer only has to be funded from the 22nd of February through to that date, which we're hoping will be April 23rd. So that employee will continually have service through this transition. As I say, it reads more difficult than it should be if you sit back and think. He's going to be computer systems engineer up until a date, and then he begins doing the full head electrician position at pay.
Okay.
Because we are defunding.
Sorry, no, go ahead. You're done.
Because we are defunding the head electrician, there are savings and other things like state retirement, Social Security, health insurance, workers' comp. So the net result of this is a reduction in our budget, which will move to contingency of $96,590, which we think is a very favorable position, not only from our staffing, but as far as the ratepayers. So I would certainly encourage you to act on this. And again, we had hoped to have it effective April 24th, which would be earliest if you expedite it. If you don't do that, we'll have to recalculate. There'll be slightly less savings. So I would encourage you to act on it effective as it is written.
Thank you. Councilman Scaringi.
Thank you, Madam President. Charlie, thanks for coming down this evening.
It's easy, I'm home.
The individual filling in for this particular position, is this the gentleman that has had previous experience working at the plant and is now is now coming in? Yeah. So I mean we actually got to speak to Elliot and some of the plant staff about this individual this morning. Council.
Yeah, we're all thrilled. He's certainly he's a great addition.
Yeah, so I would it was great to hear that there was a collective support for him coming back and kind of getting into the grind of things that are coming down the way. So I would definitely support expediting this. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilman Burns.
Yeah, Charlie, thank you for coming down. This is a different subject, but what is your opinion on doing this assessment of the maintenance right now? Opposed to waiting?
I still think it's too soon. We had
Is
three
this,
contractors.
oops, I'm sorry. Is it, I think it would be appropriate that we keep it to whatever Mr. Pearsall is here to discuss. I think that would be appropriate. So if we could just stick with this particular item.
It's a work session, aren't we allowed to discuss whatever?
Well, yeah, but you know, he's here to talk about RL 21-71.
He knows more about the plant than the two people that were here, actually, but okay.
Thank you. Anything else regarding this RL?
Atta girl, Sophia.
I'm sorry? Did somebody say something? I thought I heard something.
I heard your name. I heard your name, Council President. I thought I heard something.
Yes. Okay. So let's, if there are no other questions regarding this RL, and I also want to say that, you know, I echo what Councilman Scaringi said. We did have a conversation about this individual today. And so that seems to be great support for this. So, okay, we're going to move on to RL 21-82 with Chuck. Chuck, are you here?
I'm here, Sophia.
Hi.
I'll start off that we really should put 82 and 83 together. Okay, although 82 has to be done first. Okay. I believe it was the last work session where we came in and we talked about hiring a management firm to oversee the golf course. And at that time when we set up the budget, we had set it up so that we were going to make equipment rental type payments. In getting all this stuff finalized, it makes more sense because council wanted us to go in with a 3-year maximum contract where we could break it after 3 years, and 2 years we may cancel it thereafter. If we go that route and we rent the equipment, then we're paying more money with no asset left. What we're proposing to do is to go do a 5-year lease with John Deere for equipment that at the end of 5 years, we will own that equipment. And if it ends after 3 years, the city still owns that. They didn't throw 60% of that money away and have nothing to show for it. You would have 2 more years of payments. But I believe it's a sounder business proposal than just renting it and throwing this money away for 3 years. In order to do that, I have to move money out of an equipment rental and move it into a other debt principal payment and other debt interest payment. So what I'm requesting in the first RL is taking $50,700 out of the equipment rental line that we initially established and moved $48,000 to other debt principal and $2,700 to other debt interest. RL 82 is, or 83 is allowing the mayor to enter into a lease agreement with John Deere over a 5-year period. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Chuck. Does anyone have any questions for Chuck? Councilman Scaringi.
Thank you, Madam President. Chuck, forgive me, I apologize. I had a break in my audio. But the contract with John Deere, isn't that a cost savings as well due to the state contract?
We're buying it from a state contract. Actually, we're not.
Right.
We're buying it from a state contract, but with the management firms, they have a better deal than the state contract, so we're saving money from there.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Madam President.
Anyone else? Councilman Riley.
Yes, thank you, Council President. So Chuck, can you just give us a little bit more information? Because in past meetings, you've said it's not wise for the city to purchase large vehicles unless we could do, especially if we're, using loans. So what is the cost, the estimated cost to rent these machines compared to, I see the lease would be 470,000 over for a total of 5 years. Do we know an estimate for the lease for the 5 years or the 3 years, since that would be the term?
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I believe it's like, it would be about $85,000 a year to rent them for 3 years.
And rental would include maintenance and everything else that is part of the rental agreement though, right?
No, that's not correct. Councilman Riley. What the maintenance is going to be handled by the management firm. They'll do that whether it's a new piece of equipment or a rental piece of equipment.
So we wouldn't have to encumber additional funds for ownership and maintenance of these vehicles, these machines.
Correct. And the other pieces of equipment they were looking in the original proposal was a used piece of equipment, where this is all new, which comes with a 4-year warranty.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Chuck. Moving on to RL 21-78.
Actually, I got one more. I got one more.
Oh, you do?
I got number 80. Actually, going back, I would like those to be expedited so we can get this thing started, since we're already behind. Councilman Freeman didn't get a chance to ask me that question, but I'll take that first.
And yes, you're right. We do have 21-80. Thank you.
2180 is, I know we're going to be getting some stimulus money into the city government in the near future. I don't know when that is. And right now we have it set up that we can have a maximum of $30 million in a bank account at one time. Okay. Do we ever really come close to that? No. Okay. Except for this week when I had to pay off a ban and got a new ban in. Okay. That's the only time we ever go over that amount. And it's usually within a 24-hour period, it's taken care of. I'm proposing that we just increase all the bank accounts up to $40 million. So when this money comes in, we're not violating any charter. How that all gets split up, and I don't know when we're going to get the cash. I'm not asking for this to be expedited, but just to say that what the charter says is we could have $40 million in any one bank account.
Okay. Thank you. Councilwoman Freeman?
Thank you, Madam President. What are the, if any, the other implications of raising this cap up to 40 million? In other words, is there a reason why it was capped previously at 30 million? And would anything else shift if we increase the cap to 40 million?
To my knowledge, no. Everything that we handle with these banks, they have to have, besides the FDIC funding, they also have to have all the funds backed by treasury bills. Okay. So really, there's no other potential problem that I'm aware of.
So the previous 30 million cap was arbitrary. That was just because we didn't anticipate ever depositing more than $30 million at a time.
When I came in, I think it was 20 or 25 million, and we had a lot of money at that time. So I moved some money around and bring it all up to 30 million. So yes, okay. Your answer is we grabbed it from the sky somewhere.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Chuck.
You're welcome. You guys have a nice night.
You too. So now moving on to RL 21-78, excuse me, with Lee.
Yes.
Lee, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one here is
we can't, Lee, we can't hear you that clearly. Or can you get a little closer maybe to the microphone?
Sorry,
I can't.
Is that any better?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay. So this is for the 2021 Rumble Ponies season. They would like to do fireworks this year. They were only able to do a few shows last year, But this year they're hoping to be back up and running.
Any questions? Great, let's move on to the next one. 2179.
Yes. So this next one is correcting a variety of tax parcels.
Lee, we can't hear you that well again.
Sorry, so this one is correcting some tax rolls here in the city. These come over from the county periodically. And these, I believe, are people that have challenged their tax assessment.
We lost you again.
Sorry, does anyone have any questions on this one here?
You're talking about 2179, correct?
Correct.
Any questions? Councilwoman Freeman?
Thank you, Madam President. Hello, Lee. My question is, so I didn't get a chance to look up each of these properties, but some of these I believe are demolished, or are all of these demolished properties? Like, for example, I know 6.5 Sturgis Street was demolished this last year. Are all of these demolished, or are some of them still standing?
I believe some of these are still standing.
So it's a mix.
Correct. And this is so, these ones that are owned by the city of Binghamton, these are so that we don't have to pay taxes on these.
I see. Okay. So it comes from, when you say it comes from the county, that's a county-owned property?
I'm assuming most of these were obtained through foreclosure? Or
But when it says it comes from the county, that means they're the ones who have identified the inconsistency or the problem with the taxes.
I see. So they're not necessarily owned by the county. The county was the one who noticed the discrepancy, but these are all properties or lots that are owned by the city of Binghamton.
Correct.
Not by they are properties within the city where the county as the tax entity needs to make corrections. They could be privately owned, they could be owned by the city, they could be owned by anybody.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Ken.
Anyone else? Oh, okay. So we'll move on to pending legislation. Lee?
Okay. There's a lot here. Does anyone, I won't take up your time and read them all, but does anybody have any questions on any of this pending legislation? And just a reminder, we will have a public hearing for the bond on Wednesday.
And will that be via telephone? How are we handling? Do we know now how that will be handled?
Yeah, so we'll put a disclaimer on the meeting that explains how to log in with a telephone. But essentially, once you click the link and you enter in your email, the Zoom sends you all the info on how to call in or how to log in.
Any questions on the pending legislation? Okay. Then it sounds like that's it for the night, and I will have a motion to adjourn our work session. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.